major companies across the country are announcing layoffs in large numbers, and nearly 950,000 jobs have been cut off this year alone.
Amazon announced mass layoffs today. It is cutting 14,000 corporate jobs as it prepares for the arrival of AI technology.
Target is preparing to cut 1,800 corporate jobs. That's about 8% of its corporate workforce.
In a moment of worldwide uncertainty, when most corporations chose caution, Amazon quietly began charting a completely different course. What seemed like a routine corporate adjustment soon revealed itself as one of the most dramatic restructurings in modern business history. This transformation could permanently reshape the architecture of global commerce. Everything started in April 2025 when the White House's decision stunned the world economy. Washington stunned the economic community with a dramatic move, a broad new policy on tariffs, an act few economists had ever thought would become a reality. The plan put a wide range of obligations on virtually all the imported goods into the United States. The idea included high taxes on almost all goods entering the United States. A standard 10% tariff was unsettling enough, but the policy's real target was unmistakable: China. Goods from the world's manufacturing powerhouse would now face tariffs as high as 145%. Overnight, the global trade order was upended. Industries that had spent decades perfecting cost efficiency and supply chain precision suddenly found themselves cut off from their own systems. Electronics, clothing, and household goods, products that had long relied on Chinese factories, became dramatically more expensive. For many companies, it was chaos. For Amazon, it was an existential threat. The e-commerce titan, which commands nearly 40% of all online retail sales in the United States, had built its empire on three foundations: speed, efficiency, and affordability. But those same strengths turned into vulnerabilities as the tariffs took hold. Amazon's supply chain reached deep into Asia, with much of its sourcing tied to Chinese production. When costs exploded, the company found itself trapped in a brutal dilemma: either absorb billions in losses or pass those costs to consumers, risking the trust it had spent more than 2 decades cultivating. Within weeks, Amazon's leadership acted as though the company were at war. Long-standing contracts were ripped up, shipping routes redrawn, and production orders rerouted to new locations. In less than a month, the company had rewritten or canceled over $13 billion worth of supply chain agreements. What followed was not a simple adjustment. It was a wholesale reinvention. Amazon dismantled key partnerships with Chinese factories and rapidly forged new ones across Mexico, Vietnam, and India. The entire geography of Amazon's global logistics was being redrawn almost in real time. Warehouses, ports, and trucking hubs were being constructed or expanded at record speed. To grasp the scale of what was unfolding, one needs only recall the tariff wave of 2018, when the first Trump administration levied a 25% duty on Chinese imports. Back then, companies responded with minor tweaks, raising prices slightly or finding partial alternatives. The system bent, but it didn't break. In 2025, however, the situation was far more severe. A 145% tariff wasn't a speed bump. It was a wall. For small businesses, it meant collapse. For Amazon, it meant transformation or death. What came next surprised even its critics. Within months, Mexico emerged as the central hub of Amazon's new production and logistics network. Warehouses sprang up in cities like Tijuana and Monterrey, moving goods north by truck rather than relying on Pacific shipping lanes now burdened by tariff costs. Vietnam, already an ascendant manufacturing power, became the new Shenzhen. Factories in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi ran non-stop, producing everything from electronics to clothing for Amazon's supply chain. India, too, rose swiftly in importance. Its growing industrial infrastructure and vast labor force made it an ideal partner. Amazon poured billions into new industrial parks and logistics hubs, integrating India into its global ecosystem. In effect, Amazon wasn't just moving factories, it was building a new trade map. For developing economies, this shift was a windfall. Jobs multiplied, exports soared, and foreign investment poured in. But inside the United States, the picture darkened. The first signs of distress appeared at America's ports. In Los Angeles and Long Beach, once the lifeblood of trans-Pacific trade, container traffic plummeted as shipments from China slowed to a trickle. The fallout rippled through the economy. Dock workers saw reduced hours, truckers lost contracts, and warehouse employees faced layoffs. Economists warned that even a 10% decline in port activity could erase thousands of jobs. By the end of 2025, traffic at the major West Coast ports had fallen by more than 20%. Ironically, the policy intended to protect American workers was erasing their livelihoods. By late 2025, the contrast was stark. American ports were quieter than ever. In Mexico, warehouses ran at full capacity. In Vietnam, factories hummed through the night. And across India, new industrial zones sprawled outward, filled with machines stamping and assembling goods once made in Chinese plants. At home, shoppers noticed a different kind of transformation: higher checkout totals, longer delivery times, and shrinking product selections. Amazon's restructuring had kept the company afloat, but the costs were evident elsewhere. In total, Amazon's $13 billion reorganization did more than preserve its survival. It became a blueprint for corporate adaptation in an age of instability. The company demonstrated how quickly a global enterprise could rewire itself in response to an economic shock. But it also exposed a more profound truth. Tariffs don't bring manufacturing back, they move it elsewhere. For every new factory breaking ground on U.S. soil, thousands of other jobs vanished from ports, warehouses, or delivery networks. Each attempt to protect domestic production only added to the burden on American households. By mid-2025, these shifts had trickled into everyday life. Electronics grew more expensive and more complex to find. A laptop that once cost $800 is now sold for over $1,000. Clothing deliveries that once arrived in 2 days could take more than a week. Even basic items, kitchen tools, school supplies, toys, became noticeably costlier. For many families, this wasn't an abstract debate about global economics. It was deeply personal. A mother shopping for her child's school supplies suddenly found her bill nearly doubled. Retirees relying on Amazon for home essentials faced unexpected price hikes. Students who needed affordable laptops were forced to delay purchases. What once felt like a distant policy decision now sat squarely on the kitchen table. Behind the scenes, Amazon was rewriting not just its logistics, but also its technology. The company's predictive algorithms, long tuned to shipping routes from Shenzhen, had to be rebuilt for new origins like Ho Chi Minh City and Mumbai. Pricing systems, which once relied on China's low labor costs, were recalibrated to balance Mexico's cheaper wages against higher transportation expenses. These invisible shifts, lines of code, reprogrammed models, restructured data, were as transformative as any warehouse or factory. They allowed Amazon to adapt faster than any competitor, turning a moment of crisis into a demonstration of resilience. Yet the broader implications remain uncertain. As the U.S. grapples with rising prices and shifting trade patterns, a difficult question lingers. Is the country trading long-term economic stability for a fleeting sense of control? Amazon, at least, did not stand still. It adapted, evolved, and endured. But its story is less about one corporation and more about the era we're entering, a time when survival belongs not to the most prominent players, but to those who can move the fastest. In this new world, adaptability has become the most accurate measure of strength. And while Amazon may have mastered that art, the rest of the global economy is still learning how to keep up.